Hi there everyone, good evening and welcome to the Money Show, the real estate special. So over the next half hour, we'll have an expert joining in to decode all your questions when it comes to investing in real estate. Is it a good time right now? Should you rent or should you buy? What is the implication of RERA on a home buyer? And which are the select property markets that are doing well? You can call us in live on the number that's flashing at the bottom of your screens, or you can email us on themoneyshow@etnow.tv. Let's not waste any time and bring on board our special guest. Anuj Puri is Chairman, Anarock Property Consultants. He now joins in on the show. Good evening, Anuj, and great to have you with us. Well, let's just lay the foundation, if you will, and start off by talking about RERA. You know, there was so much hope, so much promise really riding on this. And given the time that has lapsed so far, I mean, I know the benefits that it holds, but how would you assess the overall performance of RERA so far? And what do you think this is going to do for a lot of home buyers?
So it's a very interesting question and very pertinent question. I would say is at a country level, overall I will give RERA 5.5 on 10. At a Maharashtra level, I would give 8.5 or 9 on 10. And the reason why I say is that the country is really reeling behind Maharashtra is that many of the states haven't yet adopted the RERA. Many of the states haven't appointed a regulator. Many of the states really don't have the portal on which the projects need to be registered for RERA. So clearly there is a demarcation of perhaps more mature progressive states who've been able to adopt RERA, and one of them is really Maharashtra, who's completed 1 year of RERA last week. And on the other hand, you have several of the states who haven't really prepared for RERA, and that's where I think I give 5.5 on 10 at an India level, which is really disappointing given that it's been a year and these states haven't yet adopted RERA, which is essentially to protect the consumer, the home buyer. Which is second part of your question is that how does it really protect the home buyer? What is it that it is so good about RERA? We've seen that in Maharashtra, what RERA has been able to do is really consolidating the developers and making sure that the developers who are launching the projects are launching with 4 things in mind. One, with all approvals, which was the bane of all the launches that developers were launching without approvals. It used to take 18 months to get the approvals, and there was inordinate delay.
Anuj, if I may come in here,
second is
I totally get your point, but I think the reality, according to reports is that 74% of homebuyers are unaware of the RERA compliance check process, that a large number of states are yet to get their act together. So isn't that a bit of a setback, and what do you think needs to be done on that front?
So it is absolutely correct. So that's the way that I responded to the first part of the question, is that many of the states haven't really adopted RERA. What needs to be done is, perhaps center needs to push through those states and, either in some manner or form put pressure onto those states, given that it is a state subject, real estate is a state subject, and I think at a central level there is a limited ability to be able to push through these reforms which are at a state level. Really, I think is the center will need to do something to waken up those states, or perhaps media or consumers will need to go ahead and say is, look, the consumers are not being protected, they are being exposed without RERA, and you need to put together RERA, which is as per the model code of conduct. I mean, that's the second point. Some of the states have even diluted RERA from where the center's model code of conduct was. I think Maharashtra has really taken the best out of that model code of conduct, and as I said, I gave it about 9 on 10 in that is, and to my mind many states should just ape what Maharashtra has been able to do. It is a very interesting point that you say is that people like me who are in this field really think is why consumers are not getting excited with RERA. Then I think to myself is maybe if there was a new automobile law that would have come in, maybe if there was some new pollution norm that would have come in, would I have really understood it? It would have taken me time to understand, and that's why I really console myself that the consumer is going to understand it over a period of time when they will see the regulator giving announcements, the courts giving verdicts on RERA. They will then start to understand the power of RERA, and to my mind it has got huge amount of power. It will bring consolidation. Perhaps only 6 on 10 developers are going to really be able to survive
Anuj,
through
I'm just going to have to come in here because owing to the fact that we don't talk about real estate very often and that we've got you with us on the show, I'm going to milk the opportunity. Our lines are absolutely buzzing, so let's get some viewer queries answered. We've got a caller all the way from Dubai who is joining in. Raj is with us on the phone line. Raj, hi there. Welcome to the show. What's your question for Anuj? Oh no, we seem to have snapped that line, but I'll get our first query in nonetheless. Karthik says, I live in Mumbai. I'm planning to get married this year together. Me and my fiance have saved about 20 to 30 lakh rupees. Our salary can help us service a loan. Which are the kind of areas that we can look at? What are the kind of builders to look out for, or the proportions of a flat? Because we are looking to rent with a budget, looking to buy with a budget of about 1 crore rupees. So what advice would you have for them?
So first of all, congratulations on getting married. Second, the budget is a healthy budget. 1 crores, many a times people would have said is that 1 crores in Bombay is not really going to get you anything. I think, now you're going to see a lot more properties, a lot more availability in that affordable segment of less than 1 crore. To my mind, I would say is that it really depends on her place of work, our fiance's place of work, where they are going to be working. But if it is really in the Thane, New Bombay belt, I would say that is a fantastic opportunity. The new airport is coming, great amount of infrastructure there, huge amount of working development happening, IT parks, retail malls, hotels, hospitals, great schools coming in. I think the property prices are still very reasonable at that level. And if I was to look at buying my home, I would certainly consider New Bombay as a destination if I had a 1 crore rupee budget, both from a capital appreciation point of view and from a livability point of view.
Okay, that's the view coming in, some of the areas that you can look at, and I hope that we were able to answer your query. Congratulations, Karthik, and go scouting, looking at, avoiding some of the expensive central areas. Well, next up, and this is a bit of a legal question, Mr. Srinivasan Anuj has sent us this question, but I believe we have a live caller. Okay, Mr. Srinivasan only joins in on the phone line. Mr. Srinivasan, I know you have a very long question. If you could keep it a little quick. Go ahead.
Okay. It's a joint venture between the original owners of the flat and the builder, and we are given the power of attorney. Unfortunately, for last 5 years, he is supposed to sell 2 flats apart from 4 flats. He is supposed to construct. 2 flats he has already sold and he has pocketed the money, but he is not completing the project. No clearance, nothing. My question is, can we occupy without, the structure is ready, can we occupy without clearances? Clearances? And number 2 is, it is less than 5,500 square meters area. Is it comes under RERA?
Okay, so what is your advice to Mr. Srinivasan?
Both, yeah. And it is very good that he clarified that it is less than 500 square meters. Otherwise, I would have said is, there is an additional problem coming his way, that he would have been classified as a co-promoter under RERA. Because if it's a joint venture, joint development, I assume he is saying is that the plot is below 500 square meters and hence RERA does not apply. As a result of which he's going to, get bailed out from RERA. But can he occupy without the clearances? Not at all. Clearly not at all. And he should not even attempt to do that unless you get the occupation certificate. I would not at all recommend, this will be resulting in heavy penalties, which will both from a financial and from a physical demolition point of view. And I would say is that it needs to get completed, get in all the approvals before you attempt to occupy that property.
I hope you got some clarity. Thanks so much for sending in your question, Mr. Srinivasan, and I'm glad you called in on the phone line as well. Well, we have another email query from Satya. It's a fairly generic one, and I'm sure, Anuj, a lot of people out there would want to know, at a time like this, is it a good idea to invest in real estate? And what are the factors that one needs to take into account when you choose an area to buy a property from an investment perspective?
So it is a very interesting question, and invariably I am asked this question: is it a good time to usually buy property? And my question to my response to that is it for investment or is it for end user? If it is for an end use, then I say it is a very good time to go ahead and buy property. I think if it is for investment, then you really need to choose the micro market where you believe that there is going to be a capital appreciation happening. One of the things that I see when I do invest is there new social infrastructure? Is there new economic development that is going to happen? Is there new physical infrastructure that is going to happen, which will then bring in the requisite capital appreciation from an investment point of view? I mean, earlier in our show, we spoke about Navi Mumbai. To my mind, there is a new economic development activity, a lot of IT parks coming in there, new airport, a huge amount of infrastructure coming in there, and a lot of social infrastructure that is going to get built up. Clearly, there are a number of micro markets in other cities like this where you are going to see capital appreciation happen over the next 18 to 24 months. So you will need to identify those micro markets where you're going to be able to invest. If it is for an end use, it's a very different response that I would have. I would say is please go ahead and buy the property where your children's schools are, where there are good hospitals close by, where your workplace is. And there is always a good time to buy a property if it is from an end use. But from an investment point of view, unless you are able to identify the micro market where there is going to be an uptake on infrastructure, social, physical and economic development activity, I would say is there is little reason for you to get excited as an investor.
Yeah, so I think that big question mark remains as to whether it's actually for investment purposes or not. But I'm sure you've given a little bit of clarity as well. You've been hounded with this question, and of course, no wonder we had a query like this coming in on the show. Let's take a quick break, Anuj. We've got so much more to discuss on the other side. We'll be taking on your queries. There's a number that's flashing at the bottom of your screen. Dial in for any questions on the real estate sector only, and we will get it answered. Welcome back. This is the Money Show. It's the real estate special. We've got Anuj Puri from Anarock Property Consultants here to answer your questions. Let's focus in on the next query, which has been sent in to us from Ashok Das. He says, in the current environment where you can see property prices not rising, to what extent can I negotiate with the seller to buy property, and what are the kind of discounts that builders are offering in metros? Anuj?
That's a very interesting question. So, clearly there is an ability at this moment in time to be able to negotiate on the prices. It depends on a micro market if there is an excess supply that is available in that micro market. I would say is differentiate between two things. One, perhaps not a very good developer who's willing to reduce the price, and the second is a good developer who is not willing to reduce as much the price. Do not be lured by the weaker developer who's willing to reduce the price, because we've seen in the past that buyers have got lured and have gone with the weaker developer, as a result of which they've never been able to see their apartment or house being given possession to them. Equally, when you are meeting up with the good developer, sit with a checkbook in hand. You will have an ability to negotiate. It depends from developer to developer, market to market, and locality to locality. But you should be able to negotiate between 8 to 10% discount if you are really sitting with the checkbook in hand. But again, I just want to make it very clear, do not get lured by lower prices of a weaker developer, because whilst we have protection of RERA, but RERA will only put the developer behind bars. Ultimately, you're still not going to get your apartment. So I would urge you to differentiate between a good developer and not so good developer, and go to the good developer and then negotiate hard with the good developer, rather than just purely be lured with a low price from a weaker developer.
Some key advice that everyone really needs to keep in mind during the negotiation phase. But stay with us, Anuj. I'm going to come to you for more questions. There's some breaking news on the screens.